According to the Pan-South African Language Board, the people of South Africa run the risk of losing their identity as indigenous languages continue to be sidelined by government departments. Now, on Youth Day, SABC reporter Mlungisi Khumalo is chatting to a group of young South Africans who have a keen interest on this topic. Among them, a young language expert and a author. author. Mlu joins us now live from the port city of Durban. Mlu, a very good morning to you.
A good morning to you, Blaine, and a happy Father's Day as well, and a good Youth Day to our viewers at home. Yes, like you mentioned, Blaine, this is indeed a very sad topic. As you have also recalled it during your introduction, you also mentioned that indigenous language are slowly declining. But with me this morning, I've got a number of young people that are going to be discussing this topic on this Youth Day. With me, I've got Nhlaga Matupe, and I've got Nosbusisi Sibia, and as well as Ntokozo Zulu. Now, Ntokozo Zulu is a language practitioner, a very, very young person. He's been extremely vocal about this topic. But anyway, let me just talk to these young people on Youth Day and find out what are some of their views. I'm going to firstly begin. You've been battling with isiZulu for years, but you come from a background whereby you speak isiZulu. How did it come about?
So my name is Mlungisi. Thanks for the introduction. So I come from Gauteng, Johannesburg. I was born in Benoni. So I stayed in Benoni. It was quite a white area. I stayed in a complex where it was white, so I had white friends. I went to a creche that it's the median in understanding is English. So you speak English there. So then I moved over there. As you know, in Gauteng, Zulu isn't that big, so I spoke English at school. And then I came over here, and obviously I had English friends, speaking English friends, and I understand Zulu. Yes, I do. Like, my parents speak to me in Zulu, but it's easier for me to reply in English because I've been doing English since I was small, and everything I do is in English, as in my work at school or on my phone or all of that. Yes.
So how does that make you feel, knowingly that you are struggling to communicate in vernacular?
I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm struggling. I feel like it's easier to reply in English because that's how I feel that I'm stronger in replying. But I can reply in Zulu if it's necessarily to, and yeah. But it does. Yeah, I wish I was stronger, I would say. But I enjoy knowing. At least I know I'm decently strong in quite a few languages, so that's quite encouraging for me. But yeah, I could get better. Maybe it's on my part also to learn better, but my parents did teach me well on how to speak, and yeah, but pretty much that's it. Yeah.
Now, Nhlaga, you've lived in Brazil for some time, and you and I had a discussion just off the camera, and you told me that most of the youth in Brazil actually speak Portuguese, whereas in this country most of the youth actually mix English and isiZulu. Tell us more.
Yes, so in Brazil, so most people, I would say about 98% of the population will speak their dominant language, which is Portuguese. There's not a lot of English, and it's worrying in this country to see that we should be stronger in our indigenous languages because we are an African country. Just like you see other countries in the world like Spain, France, they speak their language, they're proud of their language. We should be proud. But it's also, and another thing, we do have an advantage because you go there, foreigners go there, and then it's hard to communicate with people because all they know is Portuguese. Some people do know English, but then for here at least, like, we had things like the World Cup where foreigners came and it was easier for us to communicate with them because we do know English, and English is, well, the biggest language in the world, you know what I mean? It's communicated all over the world, so it is a necessity, but it's also a necessity to know your home language because we are from here, so we should be proud of that.
Let's give Nosbusisi an opportunity as well. Nozi, you are a language expert. You've written a number of books in isiZulu. Tell us more about that, and why do you think that our youth need to focus more on indigenous languages?
So I think our youth need to focus more on our languages because that's where your identity comes from. So if you know isiZulu and you know your history about Ushaka and everyone, then it's easier for you to be proud of who you are and saying Zulu and know what you're talking about. I was raised by my grandmother, so we had this thing where my mother used to buy me books, but she'd buy me English novels, and my grandmother would buy me isiZulu novels. I remember there was a book we used to read called Masthanda Zingabani, and that's when my love for books started. So when I decided to write a children's book, I was like, let me write it in isiZulu because a lot of our children do not know how to speak or even write isiZulu. A lot of our children don't even know how to speak or even write isiZulu. So the name of my book is called Uhambo Lwasesiqiwini, which is a trip to the zoo, because I'm sure a lot of kids don't know that a giraffe is actually Indlulamiti and a rabbit is Unogwaja. So I'm just taking them through that. But it's a fun book, but it's written in isiZulu, so it makes it easier for the parents to teach the child to write and read in isiZulu.
And then let's give Untokozo Zulu an opportunity as well. Untokozo Zulu, your name is Zulu and indigenous language as well.
Yes,
you are a petitioner. You focus a lot on indigenous languages. How rampant is it, or how vast is the challenge that young people are facing whereby they can't speak their indigenous language?
I think Nozi nailed it in the head by stating that one of the most important things when you speak of language is identity. So it has happened even for me personally on numerous occasions where you discover young people failing to express themselves in a vernacular language. But once you speak of South Africa, you are speaking about a different territory because of our history, because of the different cultures of the people who reside in the country. So, and hence English is regarded as lingua franca, which is the most spoken language in the country for communication purposes, because we come from different backgrounds. But that does not say one should not be able to express themselves in a language that is of their own, which is vernacular to them, like your mother tongue. And for example, for me, isiZulu. isiZulu is my mother's language, and I know English for work-related purposes because South Africa is structured in that manner.
Do you think the government is not doing enough, perhaps, to empower people to learn more of their indigenous languages?
I think for me it's beyond the policies that are written to say English must be learned in high school, English must be learned in university. It is about the implementation and the correct strategies that should be implemented to ensure that we assist these young ones. It is very painful for me as a person who's very fond of language to see a young kid in primary school failing to even say his or her name in isiZulu. I would say calling myself Ntokozo, and I would regard myself or call myself as Ntokozo, whereas my name is Ntokozo. So those are type of the things I'm talking about. We are supposed to speak English because of the history of the country and the situation we live under as South Africans. But that does not say we should not speak our indigenous languages. So that's my take on the matter.
Ntokozo, what should be done? Suggestions?
I did a course called Language Practice in DUT from my diploma till my master's level. There are lots of things that we are taught on the field, and there are specific language experts, people who have the knowledge on how to do these things, and they are taught. I'm going to make a very practical example to you. Back in the days when you talk about court interpreters, those people were court interpreters because they understood both English and isiZulu, but it does not mean they went to school and studied how to do interpreting. And then those people are now available, they are working, and there's a program that has been formulated for those people. So I say people who have the knowledge on how to do such things should be taught, and programs should be implemented from a very young age, and in terms of developmental stages, in terms of language and all other aspects. A practical example is the book written by Note, which talks about little things like a giraffe in isiZulu, Indlulamiti. Some of the young kids do not know that they know a giraffe is in a giraffe because it is English and they were taught like that. So it is the implementation of various strategies using the relevant people who are knowledgeable on the matter.
From your own opinion and from your own research that you have done, what do you think is going to be the dire consequences if we continue to lose our own indigenous languages?
Once we lose our own indigenous languages, we are going to lose ourselves, and we are slowly losing ourselves, because I always say because I also lecture English communication skills, language is part of culture. Once you speak of language, you are addressing someone else's culture. So I believe we will lose ourselves and who we are in terms of identity as the nation. Yeah.
Now let's give Noze an opportunity as well. You've written a very nice book, Uhambo Lasesiqiwini. What do you aim to achieve by this book?
Okay, firstly, I'm going to donate this book because I'm part of a foundation called Siyafunda, where we donate books to rural schools. I'm going to donate this book to rural schools, but also I want parents who have kids who go to private schools to buy this book so that those kids can learn isiZulu. That was my aim. When I wrote this book, my inspiration came from when I met this, I think he was 6 or something, I met him at Wimpy and we were having a conversation, and he calls his grandmother Gogi. He can't say Gogo because he can't speak isiZulu. And I was really touched because if now you can't speak your own language, we're losing our identity. I remember a few years ago, I went to Spain, and in Spain, they speak Spanish. If you come and speak English to them, they'd rather use maybe sign language and point you there or whatever you're asking. But that's just what they speak.
Do you think perhaps they need that special water that's going to change their accents instantly?
I think they do need special water. I'm kidding. I think the parents also, and I'm not blaming them, but I think when a kid goes to a private school, they must go to school, learn English, and then when they come home, you must talk to them in isiZulu. Like I said, my love for isiZulu comes from my grandmother teaching me isiZulu and my uncle being an isiZulu matric teacher. So it came from that. I remember in matric, I used to read poetry, and not to say anything, but I got 98% for my final exam in matric in isiZulu. So I've always had the love for my own language.
You know, interesting enough, Blaine, when you go to China, most of the textbooks are written in Mandarin. You know, if you go to China, most of their products in there, some of their shops are also written in Mandarin. But whereas when you come into South Africa, almost 98.9% of some of the products that we have in most of our top retail stores are actually written in English. And I'm going to pose the same question to Ntokozo Zulu over here. Do you think that we also need to implement a similar strategy in South Africa?
You've just spoke my mind to say, for us to be able to ensure that we instill this culture of speaking our own vernacular language, it also goes to an extent where an example you've just made of everything that is there to be written in the languages that we need to know, which we need to best understand. And he made an example to me while we were off camera to say what is written on that sign. It was written stop, and it is in English. Everything that is there is written in English, and the content should be provided in isiZulu. For like all other languages.
Thank you very much there, Ntokozo Zulu. Now, this is a very, very interesting discussion on this Youth Day, whereby young people throughout the whole entire country are yet celebrating Youth Day. You also recall that in June 16, 1976, young people took to the streets whereby they were protesting against the usage of Afrikaans and English as a medium of communication. But years later, we found that a number of our very own young people are struggling to speak in their own indigenous languages. And hopefully in future, Nhlakanipho will also have an opportunity whereby he'll also learn his indigenous language, and as a result of that, he'll also go on as far as inspiring others. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Blaine.
Yeah, great conversation there. Thank you very much indeed, Mlungisi Khumalo, live for us in the port city of Durban. We appreciate your reporting.